Welcome to the Loaded Box Podcast.
Where we never finish first because we finish last.
Did I do a better job of fading that out that time?
I don't even notice, honestly. I've never noticed before.
That's one of our biggest things is the person that we have running the disc jockeying on this thing is terrible.
Yeah, just awful. He's a big douche.
I don't know why we even hired that guy.
He looks a lot like Brendan Dassey.
Whatever we're paying him is way too much.
Yeah. Hey, let's make this quick. I got a fucking lot of Homeland to watch tonight.
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff to watch too. I want to watch a little Dave Chappelle. I've heard it's controversial, as DJ corrected me in the past.
You need to learn how to say that word.
I just did.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that. But my theory on this is comedy because it's controversial. If you're going to have like edited comedy, and if you think one thing's funny when it's offending something or someone else, and then all of a sudden something comes towards you and you can't find that funny, you aren't funny. You're not a good person.
Yeah, I mean, anything that's going to be funny is going to, like, push the lines of what people think is right and wrong. That's why Donald Trump's so funny.
That's true.
That's why everybody makes fun of him so much.
Right? I'm wondering if Chappelle talks about Trump at all in that stand-up. So, yeah, I'm pretty pumped up to watch that. It's been pretty hyped up. So, thank you once again, though, for listening to the Loaded Box Podcast. I am Ben Morgan. That is DJ Primo. Today, we are going to talk about the NFC West, the always exciting NFC West, with exciting teams like the San Francisco 49ers and the Los Angeles Rams, all those high-quality teams with great quarterbacks. Sorry for who I'm offending right now, but if you can't take a joke, hey, that's on you. So, well, let's talk a little bit about the offseason needs and what they've done so far, and then where we think they're going to go in the draft. The Seahawks obviously won the division, hosted a playoff game, beat the Lions before getting knocked out by the Falcons. But this offseason, I guess their headline signees have been they got a tackle in Luke Joeckel, who has kind of been a joke since he's been in the league. Sorry for the crappy joke. And Fat Eddie Lacy. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the pecking order right now of the running backs? I mean, they got Eddie Lacy, they got Procise, they've got Rawls. How do you think that's going to shake out?
Well, I think that Lacy is the clear, like the bell cow of this team, for a while.
Literally.
And yeah, literally, he's a big fat cow. And I think that they're gonna, pound him until, maybe he potentially breaks down.
Yeah.
And then Rawls is just that guy to cover. If he does break down, give him some breaks. So I think it's going to be Lacy, Rawls, and then Procise will just be kind of like the third down guy. But I think Lacy's going to be the beginning plan, and they're going to see how long they can run him.
Yeah.
And run until he gets hurt. And then if he does, they still have Rawls, who's still clearly a really good running back, so I was surprised at this signing.
Well, the thing I think with Rawls is maybe some question marks still about his health and if he's going to be able to get back to full strength. Because I think he
was great when he finally came back last year, though.
That's the thing. I think we both like him. I think they just might be a little worried. So if they can get a guy like Lacy to eat some carries, it's
he'll eat everything.
I mean, that might be all right. And like you said, they got a young guy in Procise, so it's a really loaded backfield. And then they were talking about even bringing in Jamal Charles on a visit, and I think that was almost just a formality. Like, at that point, there's no way you're going to bring in another guy.
Let's bring in all the running backs.
No kidding.
All the running backs.
When they got Lacy, like, I think the Packers had 2 running backs on the roster, and the Seahawks had like 8.
Yeah, actually, I think maybe that the Seahawks kind of do need a D tackle as well, so they can throw Lacy in there.
There you go. Play it like old school, like flag football days, where you got to play both ways.
Yeah. I mean, his fat ass could shove up the hole, and he's quick off the ball, so he can make some noise there in the middle. Yeah,
imagine that. If he recovers a fumble, he's scoring.
Oh, yeah.
You can't say that about any other defensive tackle.
Yeah, he's a beast.
Nice. Well, I guess those were some of their key free agents. Do you have anywhere else that they should go in free agency, or who do you think they should be targeting here in the draft, first round?
Well, I mean, outside of Sherman, their cornerbacks weren't really good. So I was thinking maybe they'll look to strengthen up that corner spot. They take pride in their Legion of Boom. somebody like a Tre'Davious White out of LSU would fit in well there because he's more of an aggressive guy, likes to get his hands on guy, attack the ball while it's in the air. One of those guys that'll probably another guy that'll get a lot of penalties and not be called for it.
Right.
The Seahawks So one of those guys, or maybe a Tease Tabor at that position, but I kind of like Tre'Davious White just because he seems to fit the mold there, and he's got just enough length and height to kind of fit what they like to have. So yeah. I think that would be a potential good option for them.
I agree. I think that's a good system fit. I didn't think about cornerback the way it was just because I think that they need so much help right now on the offensive line. Protecting Russell Wilson has just consistently been an issue. They tied for second most. He got sacked second most in the NFL last year, and it was only one behind Tyrod Taylor. And right now, ever since Lynch left, the running game isn't what it used to be either. They were 25th in the NFL last year in rushing yards per game. They had 99 yards per game. That's not going to cut it for a team like Seattle with a quarterback like Wilson, who, like most people besides your like super elite quarterbacks, are clearly better with a running game. So we talked about them adding Jokel, but I think that they need to do more. So they have the 26th pick, and I like your idea there of adding White. He's a good cornerback system fit. But I personally think they might go line here. Garrett Bowles out of Utah. It's the same guys that you're looking at in the first round. Ryan Ramczyk out of Wisconsin and Cam Robinson out of Bama. Those are probably the three options you're looking at. Also, I guess if they wanted to go maybe best player available, they could potentially go defensive end in the first round, just because of the depth at that position too. I feel like some people might drop. So if the lineman that they want's not there, if the cornerbacks that they want aren't there, I wouldn't be totally surprised if they went defensive end.
Like a T.J. Watt in there or something?
Yeah, I mean T.J. Watt.
I have him.
Yeah, Takaris McKinley out of UCLA, just kind of guys like that. I mean, Seattle's in a place right now where they don't need to be like too desperate. So a guy like McKinley who's coming off of an injury, maybe it's not the end of the world. That could be a good location for him. So there's a couple options anyways.
Seems like these are like the hardest to predict because there are a lot of good teams who have a lot of strengths, and you don't know if they're going to go best player available, if they're going to try to get a spot that's weak for them. I mean, lots of times they can kind of choose and pick what they want to do when you're a successful team. So it's really hard to predict, especially mock draft wise.
Yeah,
that are good like this.
I agree. I was going to say that too. Basically, teams like 25 to 32.
Yeah.
Pretty consistently, it's really hard to predict what they're going to do because obviously they're coming off of a good season. So a lot of the teams historically have just went best player available, and it's worked. You'll get a team here and there that might try to really fill up a gap, and sometimes it works hand in hand. But yeah, definitely hard to predict where a lot of the good teams will actually go. A disappointing team from last year. I mean, we kind of ripped on them quite a bit just because I think we both had really high hopes for them. We thought it would be a race for the West between Seattle and Arizona. So far in free agency, they had some defensive line issues, but they were able to re-sign Chandler Jones, and then they added Jarvis Jones. So they have a couple of guys on the edge now that can definitely help them out. But where do you see Arizona going? They hold the 13th overall pick.
So I had a couple of options. They could potentially maybe even move either here or move down for somebody and maybe look to grab a quarterback that they like. I think you've hinted at this before for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
A quarterback that they like to kind of sit behind Carson and learn. Maybe take a little bit of that Aaron Rodgers behind Brett Favre strategy and do that with somebody they like. Whether it's you never know how far quarterbacks are going to fall, and you never know what each team likes. So maybe over the long run, the Cardinals Sean Kaiser better than they like the other two guys, and I wouldn't be surprised if they liked a guy like Mahomes with what's his name? With the coach. What's the coach's name? Bruce Arians.
Oh, Arians,
With Bruce Arians, who likes to air the ball out, and Mahomes, who came from a system that throws the ball a ton,
right?
Airs it out a lot. So maybe that's something they like that they could see in him and grab him there. But I think more realistically, offensively, for them, wide receiver is something they could need to address, I think. Larry Fitzgerald's 75 years old. And then on the other side of him, they have They have what? John Ross, who was garbage.
John
Brown.
Yeah.
John Brown, Jerron Brown, and J.J. Nelson. Sorry.
Yeah.
And those guys just aren't number one wide receivers. They're just a bunch of It just seemed like a bunch of slot wide receivers
Right.
trying to fill in at the outside end. Floyd is gone.
Yep.
He went to New England this last year, so I think a wide receiver would be a position for them to look to try to fill in. So somebody like a Corey Davis. Again, I don't know how far guys are going to fall, but somebody like a Corey Davis, or even if Mike Williams got this far, obviously you grab him in there. So one of those two guys, big, tall, number one wide receiver likes.
Yeah, I like where your head's at. I really don't have much more to offer because you said the same things I was going to say. I feel like they can go several ways. They can go cornerback. That's the only other one I was thinking was maybe cornerback. Otherwise, I was thinking quarterback or receiver. You nailed it on the head there. Having Watson, letting him learn behind Palmer, step in year 2, or like you said, maybe Kaiser. Maybe they like Kaiser. Maybe they like Mahomes. See if they can get him in round 2. Cornerback is actually, if I had to make a pick today, that's where I think they would go. Just because of the number of options that could be available at 13. You got Lattimore out of Ohio State, Quincy Wilson out of Florida, and Marlon Humphrey out of Alabama. And I think any of those guys they're fairly versatile, so I think they can fit whatever scheme they go to. And I really think that Arizona would benefit, obviously, by having another cornerback outside of Patrick Peterson. And you said everything I was going to say regarding the receiver. Fitzgerald's old, Michael Floyd's not there. Brown you can't rely on. He's small. J.J. Nelson's a project. I think the way to go, I mean, what if Mike Williams is there? That's a solid replacement for Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
So I really like that idea as well.
Yeah, and this is another thing where the Cardinals, they are kind of like the Panthers, where they're like a good team and that could just come back and be a 13-3 team. So they could go, and you don't know what they're going to address. They could make moves. Them and the Panthers, both of those guys could make some trades to gather some picks because they know that they're a strong, good team that just had a down year.
Right.
And address a whole bunch of different positions instead of maybe just grabbing somebody like high in the first round. I don't know why, if I'm the Panthers and Cardinals, I'm not trying to trade and get multiple picks out of other teams that needs to address certain positions.
Right. I agree with you. I think we were both every week during the regular season. Me and you were still kind of like, I mean, can't go against the Panthers or the Cardinals. I mean, they have so much talent, and they were there. So I'm with you. I don't think they're that far off. I think they just kind of had fluky seasons, and we'll see a good bounce back this year. A team I don't think either of us are expecting to have a bounce back year, and they're kind of in a crappy position right now because of trading up for Goff. They finished last in the division last year, and I would assume that they might not. Well, they didn't actually. They got the Niners, but the
Niners.
Yeah, well, they're both trash. I should have just had them tied, but clearly not. One player away here is the Rams, and they don't have that first pick because of the Goff deal. But they're sitting second round, 5th pick is their first pick in the draft, and then free agency so far they've grabbed Andrew Whitworth, who is going to step right in and play tackle for them, which is good. And then Robert Woods, who's just a consistent receiver, not a splash signing by any means, but a guy that can get the job done.
Not by any means.
No, but but I mean, at the same point, check this out. They were 31st in passing yards last year at 184 per game. And you know how shitty that is, considering that they were always playing from behind?
It's really bad.
Yeah, so I mean,
it's because they were always trying to give Todd Gurley the ball and they couldn't block.
Right. I mean, they can literally go anywhere just basically because of that, besides running backs. So what do you like for the Rams here?
Well, like you said, they don't have a first-round pick this year. I don't know if they would go all-line, but I know I was reading that they are switching from a 4-3 to a 3-4 defense this year. So a position that they would need to address is like either a 3-4 D lineman or a 3-4 outside linebacker. So maybe targeting, and I mentioned this guy already, a TJ Watt in this position to get a guy at the outside linebacker position and who could fall into the second round there. I think that would be a really good pick. That was I think my biggest need is it seems like they need to address the changing defense that they're going to be changing to.
Yeah, what just really sucks for a team like the Rams, and there's a couple of teams that are in this boat and teams that have done it in the past, But you go all in trying to land that franchise quarterback, and you overdraft a guy like Goff, and you're literally setting your franchise back because I don't think anyone thinks he's the answer. And now you don't even have a first round pick. So
not even Allen Iverson thinks he's the answer.
No. but think about that though. Like, and now you're gonna try to build your franchise around a guy like Goff. Like, how long are the Rams gonna be in this rut now?
You gotta try it. You gotta give a full season. You have no choice.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is the bed you've made. You got to sleep in it. One of those kind of analogies. But I don't know. It's hard for me to say that as a Dolphins fan. That like, hey, I'm glad I'm not a Rams fan. But gosh, Dolphins don't seem too bad when you compare them to a team like the Rams.
I hate them both. They're both garbage.
Hey, now, come on.
At least the Rams have won a Super Bowl this century.
Is that true? They win one in the 2000s?
Maybe not. What?
Well, one that we remember anyways. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
That we've been alive for.
Close enough.
Right. Well, let's talk about the team who has the second pick in the draft, and that's the San Francisco 49ers. So they've been pretty busy in free agency under Shanahan now. They added Pierre Garçon, Malcolm Smith, another receiver in Marquise Goodwin, quarterback Brian Hoyer, defensive tackle Earl Mitchell, quite a few other guys as well. But we did a Twitter poll yesterday, and the people on Twitter, 39% of the people said that the 49ers should take Mitchell Trubisky. 30%, so right behind it was Solomon Thomas. And for those who are on Twitter, we'll be doing a poll before every podcast each week, so keep an eye out for those. We'll try to be interactive with things that relate to the podcast. But let's say that the 49ers even take a quarterback at number 2. Do you think Hoyer is going to be the day one starter there?
I agree with the majority of the people here. I think they're going to draft Trubisky, and didn't they already say that Hoyer's not going to be the starter? I guess maybe they thought they were going to get Kirk Cousins at the time.
Well, it kind of sounded like he's going to be in the mix, you know. Obviously, they signed him.
I think they're going to draft Trubisky, and I don't know. It's hard to, you don't know what different guys' philosophies are. Like, some people are going to want to start that guy right away. Other people are going to want to have you sit and learn behind the veteran. But if you're not going to be that good of a team, I feel like why not throw a quarterback out there and see what he's got and see if he does any. I know probably they tried that with Blake Bortles. We thought he had promises, and this last year he sucked big donkey dick. But I feel like if you're rebuilding, what's the point of putting a veteran quarterback out there when he can just mentor him? I just don't get it. It's not like you're going to get any benefit from a bad quarterback. Would you be scared of him struggling and having him get his confidence shook? Maybe he gets hit off and maybe he throws a bunch of picks. Then he's not built to be a quarterback then. If you're going to get your confidence shook, then you're just not built to be it anyway. So you want to see a guy who's resilient and can bounce back. Plenty of quarterbacks, from Derek Carr's class that did just fine. Yeah. I think you just got to throw them into the fire and see what they can do.
I like that argument. I don't really even have a comeback for that. I've always kind of thought you could slow cook a quarterback, and I still believe that to an extent. And I wouldn't want to invest too much into a quarterback and have his confidence be shook, but I didn't look at it from that standpoint where, well, if he gets a quick trigger, or if he's scared of people coming at him, or if he's scared of failure after year one, maybe you know right away that he's not your guy.
Yeah, because, it's all a mental game. If you can't be mentally strong, then you're not going to be a quarterback in the NFL.
Right. Well,
by the way, the Rams won their Super Bowl January 30th, 2000.
2000, so it was the 1999 season anyways.
But it was in 2000, so it was this century.
That is true. I can't argue that one. Nice. Good work.
Thanks.
Well, I'm actually exactly with the Twitter poll, because I think if you go number 2, that you're going to have your choice at quarterback, because I don't think the Browns are taking a quarterback. So you can go with Trubisky, you can take whoever you want, or I think you got to go with an edge rusher, and I think since Myles Garrett's gone, I think Solomon Thomas is that guy because he can play inside and outside. I also considered Jonathan Allen from Alabama as well. But every report that's coming out about him right now is that
Not healthy.
teams are just super scared of that like arthritic shoulder or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
his shoulder, right?
Yeah, so people are saying he could be this year's guy that drops. Maybe not out of the first round, but later in the first round. So
He can drop right down to 29 or whatever the
you
Packers
can go,
have.
you can get on a first plane to Green Bay, right?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Right. Well, and then so if they go quarterback, if they go edge, whatever. And then after that, I honestly think a team like the 49ers can go best player available after round one. Just I think they're set up to be able to do that.
Because they kind of, you know, they have to address everything,
Yeah.
right? Besides the quarterback position.
Exactly. So it's kind of a fun time if you're a 49ers fan. You get to see this whole
Like, hey, he's
new
the best,
rebuild.
let's take him.
Yeah, exactly. You don't really have to venture too far away from your big board if you're the 49ers this year.
You know, they should change the draft to an auction.
No.
That would be so awesome.
No.
First up would be Myles Garrett, and every team can auction for him.
Right. No, because what would happen would the Packers would change ownership. Instead of being publicly owned, they would become owned by Mark Cuban, and you would get every freaking guy. And
Yeah.
the Dolphins are big spenders too, so maybe I am for that.
But there's, you know, cap and everything like that, so
Right.
it'd be fun times.
Yeah. Well, I don't ever want to live in a world where that's the case. So.
Well, maybe you can only cap a bunch. Well, then, yeah. But it would be fun. I would like to see all the owners out there bidding on guys and GMs just throwing their paddles in the air.
Oh yeah, make an old school auction like that.
Oh, yeah, hardcore. Get the guy up there. That'd be great. And have the athlete standing next to him with, like, his shirt off.
Whoa.
Yeah. Make it really awesome. It's like the black market almost. Be just a
Gee.
bunch of slaves out there. Talk about pushing the lines of comedy. I'm doing it right now. I'm on fire.
Yeah, that wouldn't set us back as a species too far, would it?
Yeah, it would be awesome. There'd be white guys up there too, though.
I guess. A few here or there. Do you have anything else you want to add to the NFC West?
I'm just so glad we went there. I don't have anything else to say.
Nice. That was a good way to end the NFC West. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the NFL draft. This week we want to break down the top wide receivers that we have. And these guys that we're ranking here, we've kind of just been going back and forth between my rankings and DJ's rankings. So this week was my week to take receivers and rank them. So DJ, you can agree, you can disagree, you can do whatever you'd like here. So
All right.
my first guy that I have ranked, and I think it's pretty common around the NFL draft circles anyways, is Mike Williams out of Clemson. I think he's an obvious first rounder. I see him going as early as 6 to the Jets. I don't see it happening, but I think it's a possibility. Or I think kind of like that last spot that he could go, as latest he could go would be 13 to the Cardinals. I really, really like him in Arizona. Kind of a sneaky team as well that has needs but could really go anywhere as well as the Bills. I could see them taking him at 10. The thing about Mike Williams is he's not a burner. He really needs to win by attacking the ball and making contested catches, which luckily for him he does well. But throughout his entire career, I mean, he's put up good numbers. The fact that he's put up good numbers, but consider the fact here, though, that he's also been playing with Deshaun Watson, and he's in a pretty open offense. So I'm a little leery on that because he is playing with a potential first-round quarterback in an offense that does like to air it out. But then I look at it from like devil's advocate here. I can't possibly hate on Clemson wide receivers right now because of the way that they've produced in the NFL. DeAndre Hopkins and Sammy Watkins being the main two. Honestly, I like both of those guys more than Williams, but I think Mike Williams is a different player to those. So kind of just trying to maybe compare him to someone. I'm not huge on player comps, and I don't think he's a similar player to Michael Crabtree, but in terms of production, I think Mike Williams could put up similar production as a guy like Michael Crabtree.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like wide receiver comparisons either, so I don't think I'd really go down that route. But I think he's obviously the clear number one, no doubt. And I think he should be drafted in top 10 because, I mean, a wide receiver matched with a good quarterback especially if you're going to if you have a young quarterback on your team or looking to have a younger quarterback on your team, you kind of want to pair them with a young wide receiver that they can kind of grow up and like a Derek Carr and a Martin Cooper, like
right.
Lethal that. I mean, will be
eventually.
Just going to get better and better as the years go on. So, yeah, I mean, it's clearly the top guy, and it's not even a thought.
Yeah, I like that. I'm a little bit closer, as you'll see here, because my second ranked guy is Corey Davis out of Western Michigan. He's bigger than a lot of people think he is. He's 6'3", but he is a little bit on the lanky side. He's 210, so just kind of that frame. But honestly, I was watching some video of him. He's fun to watch because he's a lot faster than people are giving him credit for, and he's drawn a couple of Terrell Owens comparisons, but he's just not as thick as T.O. One nice thing about him is his level of production has always been really good at Western Michigan. He's put up good numbers, and he's been consistent his entire time there. But since he played at Western Michigan, he's playing at a small school, so it's a little bit harder to judge him compared to a guy like Mike Williams. But just watching Davis the amount of times I've been able to, and then just watching a little bit of tape on him, he consistently gets behind defenses. He catches with his hands, and I think he's a little bit more versatile than a guy like Mike Williams. So I almost ranked Corey Davis higher. But the fact that he played at Western Michigan made me keep Williams ahead of him. But I really like Davis, the type of receiver that he is, because I think he can do everything. And I think in the right system, he can really flourish. And here's my prediction. I think he's going to lead all rookie wide receivers statistically, regardless of where he goes, because I think he can fit in anywhere. So I have him in the first round. I think his ceiling there would be 10 to Buffalo, but I think he's going in that 10 to 20 range. Denver's at 20, and I think that would be a solid fit for him. But I really think Corey Davis, I'm this close, and you can't see it because this is a podcast, but my fingers are about 2 inches away from each other to putting him number one over Mike Williams.
Yeah, and saw some rankings putting John Ross ahead of him, and I don't know, I favor side over small and speedy because you've seen how much small and speedy has gotten people in trouble, specifically the Raiders in the past.
Right.
I want an athletic guy who can go up and make plays. Those are the guys that are successful in the NFL. Lots of these cornerbacks aren't that tall, and they get big guys like that get more penalties against them.
Right.
So I want to go with a guy who can he's clearly my number two guy, and I don't even think it's close between the two of them. The rest of the guys after this are kind of just the next couple of guys, I guess, are a little just fast guys, I guess, in my opinion here. So I think he's a clear guy. I'm kind of a what's the word sizist or something like that. They use it in they use it in the league. I can't remember what the
I can't remember what that word is.
League is. But I'm that. I prefer bigger guys.
That's how. Oh gosh, that's what she said.
What? Yeah, that's what she said.
You have always been that way, though. You've always preferred like a guy like Terrell Owens compared to a guy like, oh gosh, I can't even think of a guy right now like a Wes Welker or a Jarvis Landry or someone like that. You know,
yeah, definitely. I don't like exactly, or a Julian Edelman. I've never been one who would if I do a fantasy draft, I find myself drafting the big guys,
the big body target
guys.
Yeah,
and even though it doesn't even make sense to do it in certain situations.
Right. Well, my third guy is kind of like that smaller guy, and I think it's obvious that it's John Ross out of Washington, and obviously he's probably right now one of the more hyped receivers in the draft just because of his 40 time. I mean, he ran a 4.22. He beat Chris Johnson's record. He almost owned his own island. He's 5'11", so he's not like super short, but he only weighs 188, so I think he's more suited to work out of the slot. When I think of Ross, I really think of Brandon Cooks. But I also feel like John Ross can run some go routes from the outside at least. Because of his fast 40 and his numbers that he put up and the fact that I don't think he's a one-trick pony. So I do think he'll go in the first round, but I think it'll be after Corey Davis. But there's no way that, I guess it's scheme, but there's no way I would take John Ross before Corey Davis. But I do think Ross can be a little bit more than just that fast guy. A lot of people are saying, well, he's kind of like a better Tavon Austin who went pretty early. But I don't know. I don't see that. I think he's a little bit taller than Tavon Austin, and I think he'll be utilized better. But if you watch some John Ross highlights, you're going to see a lot of kick returns. You're going to see some reverses. You're going to see a lot of go routes. So I think he's somewhat limited, but like I said, at 5'11", he can still go outside and he can win on some of his routes. Well, at least the team that drafts him probably hopes he can. So in regards to the draft, I could see the Saints maybe kind of making like a sneaky pick at 11 just to replace Brandon Cooks. Or they do have the 32nd pick now too if he were to fall. So maybe the Saints, I would consider him potentially going to the Lions at 21, giving Stafford a guy that can get down the field. Or I'm going to say this, and I don't think it's realistic, and I want to get your opinion on it. But I think Green Bay would be a really good fit, but I don't see the Packers going receiver in round 1.
If they touch a wide receiver, I'll throw my computer through the goddamn screen in the first round. I will. I'll lose my shit.
I sort of figured that's where you would go. I mean, that's not the Packers' MO. I mean, they find second to
they
like.
pride themselves on late round wide receivers.
They do. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't necessarily agree with this one. I don't like this. He relies on speed, this guy. To me, it's just overhyped on speed, and that makes me nervous.
Right.
And you brought this guy up last week that I don't know if you're going to have him in your top whatever rankings here. But now I've got my eye on him. I'm starting to look more at our Darius Stewart. He's just I completely forgot about him, then I remembered. And he's a really technical player. Like, he runs great. I runs like an Amari Cooper. He just reminds me of him. They happen to play at the same place. He's like around the same height as your John Ross, but he's bigger. He's 200, about 20 pounds bigger.
Yeah.
And he ran a 4.49. I don't know. I wouldn't sleep on this guy. I know they haven't projected in a second to third round, but man, he could be a steal to me, in my opinion. Especially a guy out of Alabama. I like Alabama players.
Right, and I'm completely with you, and you nailed it on the head. He's not my next guy, but he's the guy after that. So I'll jump into Stewart here in a minute. But the guy I have next on my rankings was Zay Jones from East Carolina, 6'1", 200. Another guy from a small school, though, that passes the shit out of the ball. Because at East Carolina, I mean, he beat his old teammate's record, Justin Hardy, who plays for the Falcons now, for most catches in the NCAA. So there was some hype around Justin Hardy coming out of the draft. And now Zay Jones is being hyped up even more than Hardy was. So honestly, when it comes to like a ceiling and a floor, I think Hardy is Zay Jones' floor, which isn't saying too much. Hardy hasn't been able to produce too much in the NFL yet. But I think he's a completely different type of receiver, being the 6'1" guy. He's really quick. He's faster than Hardy. He makes more contested catches, down the field, jump ball situations. I can really see Zay Jones going maybe like second or third round because he had like a really good Senior Bowl and he performed pretty well at the Combine. But if you just watch any of Zay Jones' tape, you're going to see him wide open all the time. And I think that's a combination of he's a pretty good route runner, but they're also playing less than stellar defenses. So I don't know how much stock you could put into that. So I'm not going to go crazy and draft a guy like Zay Jones super early, but I do think he's going to come off the board in that second or third round. A couple of teams I think he'd be a good fit for. The Steelers, who can spread it out. They have a ton of options, so just adding another guy like Zay Jones would obviously be a solid fit, especially with Martavis Bryant being one failed drug test away from like not playing ever again. Or the Denver Broncos, who I think is a good fit for a lot of receivers, just because I'm really high on them taking a receiver this year. But I think that he'd be a solid day 2 pick for one of those teams.
Yeah, my goal for the week, watch Zay Jones on tape. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and watch this guy because I haven't been as stealthy on him, so I need to watch some tape on him and get my own scouting report on him now.
Yeah, you're going to see him running free often. It's funny.
Yeah, well, you can't just watch those. You can't watch the good highlights. Got to watch them all.
That is true. Well, let's talk about that guy that you're getting a little bit higher on here. Darius Stewart, 5'11", 215, like you said, out of Bama. I think this guy is going to excel in the NFL in the slot. I think we said this either last week or whenever it was, but he did very well in a run-heavy offense with a non-passing quarterback. So just imagine what he's going to do in the NFL now with a team that actually utilizes him. I think I said this on Twitter months ago. His floor is Cole Beasley, and his ceiling is somewhere around like a Jarvis Landry, but he has more speed than both of those guys. So I really think teams can get creative and use him really effectively. I think he sneaks into the second round. NFL offenses, the way they're run now, they love this kind of guy. And we mentioned him maybe going to Denver in the last podcast, and I just said that too with Zay Jones. But I think Denver's an ideal spot for a guy like Stewart.
Stop with the Denver crap, man.
Man, Denver is taking a receiver, or I'm going to be pissed.
Yes, I like that you ranked him in your top 5 there. I didn't think you'd have him in there at all. So, yeah, I'm glad we're at least somewhat on the same page on that one. And you've heard my analysis on him. So.
Yeah, you already got him. So the last guy that I ranked here, and I'm not a huge fan of him. I know some people are, but it's Juju Smith-Schuster out of USC. He's a big frame guy. He's 6'2", 215. He's not nearly as quick, but I see him more of like a why? What did I say?
Well, you were choppy on my computer, so it was like a Juju Smith-Schuster, and it sounded hilarious. You just kept saying Jew. And I wish I could have recorded that. That was great.
Yeah, because that's not going to transfer to the podcast. But dang it, that's too bad. Oh, man. Well, I was just saying that he's a big frame guy. I think he's going to be a possession receiver in the NFL. Saw some comparisons of like a Laquan Treadwell from last year. I liked Treadwell in last year's draft, but he literally did 0 in his rookie year. So I don't know. Smith-Schuster might be able to outperform what Treadwell did, but as a prospect, I'd like Treadwell a lot more. I think at the end of the day, what scares me about Smith-Schuster is he's a USC wide receiver. Like, these guys have consistently, the ones that have come in, like your Robert Woods,
Mike Williams.
Yeah, I'm thinking about some guys that have actually done okay for themselves, though, recently. Oh, okay.
I thought you were talking about crappy ones.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, though. Like, the ones that are super hyped up.
Charles Rogers. Was it Charles? Wait, who was the USC?
Mike Williams.
Who was Mike Williams, right?
Yeah.
Where did Charles Rogers go?
Michigan State.
Yeah, okay. I was trying to remember. Because they both came, the same year, didn't they?
It was, maybe a year between.
Okay, I remember Charles Rogers had a commercial. Sorry, I'm going off topic. He had a commercial. They had commercials back then about and he was like, Charles Rogers.
Yeah, wasn't that a Madden commercial?
What?
Wasn't that a Madden commercial?
It must have been, but then nothing after that. He was garbage.
He was. I think he scored week 1, and then that was it.
Yeah.
One thing about Smith-Schuster too is he put up really good numbers once Sam Darnold took over, but likely again Sam Darnold's a freaking likely a top pick once he goes, like a lot of other quarterbacks at USC were. So I just think that Smith-Schuster is a move the sticks kind of guy. I think he's going to excel getting some mid-range passes, and that's where a lot of the teams in the NFL go, so I think he can be fine. I think he's one of those second or third round kind of guys. I don't expect too much out of him, but I think he's a guy that eventually can be a number 2 somewhere.
He's a strong guy with big hands.
Right.
Big hands. Don't you think he could be somebody like a Brandon Marshall potentially too?
No, I think you're going to like him more because of his frame than I do. I
like Juju. I like what I've seen of Juju in my days. And he ran a slower 40 than I would expect.
Right.
But he's got huge hands, if that means anything. But so did Akeem Nicks, so...
Yeah, I mean, that Marshall comparison scares me just because Marshall was so dominant for so many years, and I don't think he'll ever be that good. I'm trying to think of another guy that I would put at his ceiling, but I don't know. I guess I don't think there's a chance that he can become the next Brandon Marshall or anyone like that.
I just think this wide receiver class is so much deeper than people think. It might actually be deeper than the running back class.
It's deep, but it lacks that stud, like other receiver classes we've seen from the past.
I was just looking through some of these wide receivers that I've watched. I just didn't realize how many guys I've actually watched. These are really good wide receivers.
Right.
Names that you hear a lot of. And I looked down at number 15 on here. I see D.D. Westbrook. I mean, it's just
right.
I don't know. I think it's gonna be deeper than the actual running back position that everybody's so high on this year for this.
Right. I agree with that. I think they're both deep. I just think I think they're top heavy. I'm really struggling with what I'm trying to say here. I mean, we're fresh off of a class where it was the last couple of years. I mean, we're looking at Mike Evans, Odell Beckham, freaking Adams from Green Bay, Jarvis Landry. I mean, all these guys, like, right away, they just stepped in and just dominated. Amari Cooper you can put in there. I think that this class is going to have a lot of guys that are, like, eventually going to become, like, a team's number 2. Like, they're going to have long careers. They're just not going to be, like, outstanding, stellar careers.
But if you think about it this way. So when I was in middle school, high school, everybody wanted to be a running back, right?
Yeah.
Everybody. That was the business. Or everybody was there. You had more. Now everybody wants to be a wide receiver because that's a flex position. To me, that just brings more competition, and that is a lot better guys at those positions coming into the draft now.
That's true.
You're comparing really good guys against really good guys, and you don't realize it right now, but then they start to get in their own offenses in the NFL with NFL quarterbacks, and lots of these guys can succeed at a high level. So I guess it depends on who they're playing with that quarterback a lot of times too.
Right. And I even left off a guy from both the running back and the receiver rankings in Curtis Samuel from Ohio State.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy, he could end up being a stud. Like, I really think he could. I don't really know where to rank a guy like that, but I think that he has a really good future in the league because of his versatility.
I don't like those guys.
No?
No, I consider my type that, like, if I was an NFL player. But I don't like those hybrid players because they just remind me of Percy Harvins and Cordero Pattersons, and they just don't seem to they have a flash and then they suck. I'm worried about Kansas City guy Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill, yeah.
And the wide receiver out of the Falcons,
Taylor Gabriel.
Like, those guys, to me, I don't trust them. I don't feel like they have longevity.
You're onto something there. Like, they flash for like a couple of years, and then it's like, oh, where'd that guy go? Yeah. Like, that's consistently happened. It might just be coincidence too. Like, Percy Harvin was really good when he had Favre, and a little while after that, but then all of a sudden, like, boom, he disappeared. He was nothing. He went to Seattle, got hurt, did well, but then after that, I mean, he went to Buffalo and did nothing. He just faded out.
Yep.
There's a lot of guys like that. So I'm kind of with you. I don't know. I almost think that it's just like a series of unfortunate events for some guys. That's why they didn't pan out.
What is this, movie time?
You got any other
Harry Potter or something?
Right. Harry Potter and the NFL and the series of unfortunate events.
Yeah, it's awful.
You have any other receivers you wanted to talk about?
No, I think we got to hit on even more than we were going to. So we kind of got to guys I would have talked about anyways.
Okay, well, that works for me. Well, thank you once again for listening. Be sure to check out last week's episode. We broke down the AFC West, and we did our March Madness-themed NFL's Most Hated Bracket. So if you haven't listened to that, be sure to check that out. As always, tweet us any questions you'd like answered on the podcast at Loaded Box. Continue to like and share the Facebook page. I mentioned earlier we'll be doing a Twitter poll before every podcast, so if you want to throw out an opinion or make your vote count, check that out. As always, we're available on iTunes, searching Loaded Box. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and tell your friends about that. And that's all I got. DJ, send us out.
Once it hits your lips, it's so good.